I came from Washington, where last week I laid out our defense budget for 2017. In that budget, we are and we need to take a long view in our mission to defend the United States. We have to, because even as we fight today's fights, we must also be prepared for what might come 10, 20, or 30 years down the road. This is particularly important today because today's security environment, like everything else, is rapidly changing. It's competitive. It's dramatically different from the last 25 years. And going to require of us new ways of investing and operating for the U.S. military. 5 evolving challenges, namely Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, and terrorism, now drive DoD's planning and budgeting. And I want to describe briefly each of them to you before I dive more deeply into some issues that I know are top of mind for this particular community. The first 2 of the 5 challenges reflect a return in some ways to great power competition. One is in Europe, where we're taking a strong and balanced approach to deter Russian aggression. The second challenge is in the Asia-Pacific, the single most consequential region for America's future, where China's rising, which is fine, but behaving aggressively, which is not. Now, we don't desire conflict with either of those countries. And while I need to say that they pose some similar challenges militarily, they're very different nations and very different situations. And our preference is to work together with important nations. But we also cannot blind ourselves to their apparent goals and actions. And meanwhile, 2 other long-standing challenges pose threats in specific regions. North Korea is one. That's why our forces on the Korean Peninsula remain ready, as they say, and have said for decades now, to fight tonight. The other is Iran, because while the nuclear accord is a good deal for preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, we must still deter Iranian aggression and malign influence against our allies and friends, particularly Israel. The 5th challenge, very different from the other 4, very important, is our ongoing fight against terrorism, and especially ISIL, which we must and will deal a lasting defeat. Most immediately in its parent tumor in Iraq and Syria, where we're accelerating our campaign in every dimension, as well as where ISIL is metastasizing around the world. We're doing that in North Africa. We're doing that in Afghanistan, where we continue to stand with the Afghan government and people to counter al-Qaeda and now ISIL. And all the time, all the while, we're continuing to work with other government agencies to protect our people here in the homeland. We don't have the luxury of choosing among these challenges, but we do have the ability to set a course for the future. A future that's uncertain, but will surely be competitive and demanding of America's leadership, values, and military edge. That's why a common theme across our budget is that DoD has to innovate to be competitive in a competitive world. As I like to say, we in the Pentagon need to think outside of our 5-sided box.